Hi there, I'm Dani, spiritualtherapist.com, and today I have a wonderful surprise for you. This lady I'm going to introduce to you in a moment is a galactic being. She is very much connected to Andromeda and the Andromedans. I saw her last year, I think it was last July, and I was with Alex Collier. And this lady, Marcela, had asked Alex Collier to witness her presentation at the Mount Shasta event. And so Alex and I went together to witness this beautiful Marcela give her presentation. It has taken me months to try and find her, to try and connect to her. I've emailed other people's websites who've had her on. And just the other week, I was talking with Alex and he got us connected. So I'm so excited to introduce Marcela Velasco. Welcome, darling.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be here today with you.
I am so excited for you to be who you are, number one, but also for you to bring, to the audience that will watch this, the information, the clarity, and the experiences that you've been having with the Andromedans for such a long time. I would love to start by asking you, when you were a little girl growing up, and you grew up in Peru, did you not?
Yes, in Cusco, Peru.
And I just love Cusco. I was there in 2018. It was just one of the most mind-blowing, beautiful places I've ever been in my life, Cusco. And then we went up to Machu Picchu, and it was just stunning. So when you were a little girl, what kind of upbringing did you have in terms of understanding the Peruvians and the Mayans and the Incas and all of that? And what personal spiritual experiences did you have?
Well, it's a little bit contradictory because I went to a Catholic school with nuns, but then Cusco, it's a city that it's a mix between Spanish and Inca heritage. So we grew up between being Catholic and then using a little bit of the Inca cosmogony, which means the dedication to honor the earth, Pachamama, and the stars and the moon and the water and the rivers and the mountains. And my father used to have a farm a little bit far away from Cusco, very high up, over like 14,000 feet high. And we used to go there a couple of times a year. And I learned from the local people how to honor the earth. So that was the beginning, to honor Pachamama and everything they did. And I learned to be connected with the earth, with the mountains, with the sun. And that's why they call me a galactic shaman, because in every contact ceremony that I do, because every contact for me is a ceremony, I also honor the earth and I work with the elements. And I learned that since I was very little, and my father was very supportive of metaphysical and ET contact. So I grew up being supported by my parents in a very normal family.
That is so beautiful. It is really quite unusual to have, contactees, galactic beings, have their parents actually support them. Often it's an opposite journey. I'm so happy for you that your mum and dad did support you. Now, your accent is beautiful. And, we all know, and I have a different accent too, to say American, for example. So we all need to kind of tune our ears sometimes a little bit. Now, you mentioned the name Pachamama, and not everybody knows what that is. So for those that don't know, Pachamama is simply another word for planet Earth, the same as Gaia or Haya. So just to let people know, and you were speaking of growing up in Cusco and going to your father's farm and learning ceremony, learning the indigenous ways, how to ceremonially, bless the moon, the sun, the stars, Pachamama, the planet, for example. So just wanted to lay that down while people are kind of tuning themselves into your beautiful frequency and your perfect accent. So happy that you had mom and dad. Can you tell us how old you were when you realized that you were connecting with other beings, and what did those beings look like?
Probably I was 5 when I started to see all these blue lights hanging out around me wherever I went. Or sometimes I could see them in the corner of my eyes, and I knew they were there. I didn't know who they were, but they were there. So I always felt protected. And when they weren't there, I was always wondering why they left or what they wanted. So I was always very interested in metaphysics and ET contact. So I learned from the RAMA people, the Mission RAMA Group, all the protocols for contact.
I'm sorry, you learned from the RAMA people?
Yeah, the Mission RAMA Group is an ET contact group in Peru that started in 1974, and it's dedicated to ET contact, and they have beautiful protocols for contact.
Mm. Would you like to share some of those protocols with us?
Well, it's very similar to EC5s, but basically it's the connection with yourself first to be able to reconnect to you, and then learn how to meditate, how to follow a few steps that were given to Mr. Sixto Paz, which is the leader of this group for contact from people from Jupiter.
Okay, you can't just jump to Jupiter, Marcela, like that, okay? It's too exciting, it's too exciting. Okay, so this group, the RAMA or RAMA Group, is that R-A-M-A, RAMA Group?
Well, they write it as R-A-H-M-A.
Okay.
And they also say that it means love in the galactic world, because we are all love and we're here to raise the frequency of the planet. So they started in 1974 until now. There are many groups all over the world. Even in Shasta, there are a few Rama people that still go there for contact, and they teach a lot of people the message they receive from beings from Jupiter at the beginning.
Okay, so people are going to be wondering right now, okay, so you and I are discussing Andromeda in the main and your childhood and the indigenous ways that you learned how to connect. How does Jupiter suddenly drop into us discussing Andromeda, and what beings are you referring to on Jupiter?
Well, actually, I'm not referring to beings in Jupiter because I mean, my contact is basically based on Andromeda, but talking about the beginning of my ET contact when I was very young, it's related to Mission Rama, which is a group dedicated to ET contact in Peru, and they teach you how to meditate and how to make contact. And they started connecting with people from Jupiter, from Venus, and they got a lot of information, and they had their own guides and their own philosophy.
Okay, so did you yourself ever connect directly to any beings on Jupiter through learning through this RAMA group?
Yeah, well, through my life, I learned first to connect with the intraterrestrial world. And being in my farm, I connected with beings from that intraterrestrial world, and I learned a lot from them. I also learned that we were in the middle, connecting the intraterrestrial with the extraterrestrial world. So when I was part of Mission Rama, yes, I connected with beings from Jupiter, from Sirius, from Orion, from the constellation of the Swan, and many different beings for many years.
And by constellation of the Swan, are you referring to Cygnus?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned intraterrestrial beings. So some people won't have heard of intraterrestrial beings. Can you give us some insight into that, please?
Well, that there are beings that live in the hollow earth, belong to a different dimension, different frequency. There were also times when beings that were on the earth, I'm not saying human, but beings, maybe galactic beings that were on earth, and they came here to bring a lot of information and light codes to the planet. They went to live inside. So E.T.S and intraterrestrial beings lived together and created many spots all over the world that I call them crystal cities. They hold a lot of light codes and a lot of energy and frequency to help our planet from the inner world. And one of those crystal cities are in Shasta, for example. There's another one that is connected to a lagoon in my farm. That's how I started my intraterrestrial contact.
That's amazing. So these beautiful crystal cities that exist inside the earth, some call it inner earth, some call it, I've forgotten the Algoroth. Oh my gosh, it's escaped me for a moment. Anyway, there's lots of different names and titles for inner earth. And you're referring to Mount Shasta, where we are told there is a city called Telos. I also heard very recently that a lot of the inner earth peoples have been traveling to Peru. Now, do you have any information on this happening?
I think that in these retreats, because there are crystal temples dedicated to hold the light for the planet, and they have special energies and crystals also that are coded for the end of times as they were for the beginning of times. I think they're all connected. So probably beings, light beings and ascended masters, they move in between preparing those beings in every specific location. And at the same time, each location has their own purpose on the earth.
Yes, absolutely. Can you tell us what kind of crystals you're referring to?
Oh, basically to white crystals, translucent crystals, because Andromeda also uses translucent energy for everything.
So white crystals, and these could be clear quartz crystals,
Yeah.
Lemurian crystals.
Yeah, any of those, because they actually, like quartz, exist all over the planet underneath. So that's what they use to hold energy or vibrations or frequencies or light codes. And like we do now, you know, from the 80s on the New Age times, we all had a crystal, and we also learn how to code it even for healing or for meditation or whatever. I think it was the same that it was done in the past, but on a higher level, of course.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, you mentioned the term new age. For me, I'm like, yawn. There's nothing new age or brand new about this moment of this world ascension and disclosure that we're in. It was simply a label given to make people feel stupid, like they're such a hippie, or it was designed as a distraction, because crystals and the information of us as being spiritual beings, interterrestrial, extraterrestrial, aliens, whatever we want to call ourselves, galactic beings, has always been. It has always been. So it's so exciting that we're in this time right now of full disclosure. Could you tell us, apart from Mount Shasta, apart from your lagoon in Cusco, in the mountains, where there are crystal cities and inner earth cities, where else might we find locations for inner earth cities?
Oh, I think they're all over the world. They're connected underneath. Probably, I mean, like Patagonia in Argentina, many different places in Brazil, in Bolivia, Lake Titicaca, in Colombia, then Central America. There are many places in Guatemala and Honduras, and then here in the US, many through the Rocky Mountains also, and then in Europe, and then Egypt, I would say, places in South Africa and Asia, many, many places in Asia.
So basically the entire world. But it's just
Yeah,
nice
it's all connected, interconnected.
Yeah. And you know, there's some people that will watch this, and of course it's sensible to be skeptical. You know, I mean, we've all been programmed not to believe a thing about the possibilities of how amazing we are and that we are intergalactic family. But it's so lovely too, because people might feel like, well, I went to Lake Titicaca and, you know, Bolivia, and I felt this amazing energy there, and I couldn't quite place it. And then they come to understand that there's inner earth activity there too, and like say Patagonia, Brazil, Argentina. A lot of the South American areas. I myself am in Costa Rica, and the mountain that I live on, I'm on the very top of a very sacred mountain. The CIA just popped into my ear, by the way. But this is a crystalline energy, and so this house is so amplified because it's got glass walls, and the beings that come through to visit is just astounding. You know, astounding. So a lot of these places have this perfect atmospheric, you know, resonance where these beautiful beings have an easier time being more solid. That's my own personal experience. But back to you and your experiences of meeting different kinds of beings. Now, before we get into the Andromedans, can you describe some of the beings that you may have connected to and seen from Venus and Jupiter, etc., when you were discovering ET contact?
Well, if there are beings from our galaxy, from the Milky Way, most of them have a physical body. Sometimes they can look, I mean, similar to us, a little bit taller, blue eyes, or dark skin. And that's how you learn how different it is, every galaxy and every inhabitant of each galaxy. But the message from all of them is always a loving message of trying to help humanity and the earth as a living entity.
To help the earth as the living entity, the living, breathing being that she is, that we share. Can you tell us, most of us have heard about the blue-eyed blonde Nordic type, Pleiadian type in particular, or there are others, of course. Could you talk to us and explain or describe what the dark-skinned brothers and sisters look like?
Well, mostly I think they're from Sirius and Orion, depending where in Sirius too. And they look pretty much like us, a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, I would say. Their eyes just a little bit different, more like Asian look like. But I think what is most important is the connection and the light they expand, because that's the purpose. I mean, for me, about ET contact, it's to communicate in the light and be able to feel that energy and the light more than looking at them or having like a physical contact as we know it as normal.
So could you share with us your learned, long-term learned technique of connecting to a being?
Well, through the Mission RAMA Group, I learned the meditations and the steps to go within and call them and how they can manifest. But it was after many, many years, probably around year 2000, when I was channeling, and this being from Andromeda showed, and she started explaining to us what we needed to do to go farther and in a higher frequency for contact. So since then, because they talk about the sound of silence and how to listen with your heart and humbleness, no ego, and how to go through and within and how to see through and beyond, I learned to communicate with them through my heart. So usually there's no mind. I mean, focus on your heart and just feel the energy and the vibration and then start from there.
Now, just a word on channeling. I myself also believe that it can be extremely dangerous for people to channel when they don't know what they're channeling. A lot of people have been taken over and hijacked. A lot of people have been espousing misinformation on our planet for many, many years. So we must pay attention to safety, to protecting ourselves, rather than just let any old bugger in and start, you know, because there's an agenda to, you know, to harm a lot of people on the planet that way. You said the heart, and you know, the heart energy, the heart frequency, the love frequency is so crazily important and beautifully important. We don't always think about the brain, the mind. The frequency around this is so much smaller than the frequency around the heart. The heart is like the earth within us, the love frequency like within us. So, and you said about meditation. Was it a long kind of, because a lot of people aren't able to concentrate on meditating. Could you give us a synopsis on a method that might be helpful for people to go in to a meditation and then expand through the heart to connect with their brothers and sisters?
I think there's a difference in meditation because you can follow, you know, Tibetan, Indian meditations and all kind of meditations. For me, the easiest way is to connect to yourself. You know, it's like just try to go within and try to find the peace and the center of yourself. And once you connect to yourself, then you can start moving all your thoughts and your mind goes to zero, blank, and then you can see that you can move from your heart and you can breathe and you can talk and you can feel. So once you're connected to yourself, whatever you call a meditation, because it can be anything to meditate, you know, because you can be in a place that just makes you breathe. You know, when you feel that, like, for example, you're on the ocean and you just feel the breeze. Well, that's a way of meditation too. So if you go within until you find the peace within yourself, I mean, that's a way of meditation. And then for contact, there's so many different ways. The thing is that usually people think that contact is to be watching at the sky, when sometimes you need to connect to yourself first before you go into contact. And contact comes in many different ways. Just listening to your heart, you know that you're in contact, but you need to know who you're in contact with, because it's the same like when you're channeling. I mean, who you're channeling, do you know how, why? So it's the same with contact. I mean, with ET contact, you need to know who you are making contact with, because the purpose is not the phenomena. The purpose is the communication, the relationship that we can create for a purpose, for a higher purpose, for ourselves and our planet in service to humanity also.
So beautiful. You mentioned about coming from the heart space and then moving up into the mind, let's say. Do you recognize connection to the pineal gland?
Oh, yes, I do. I do everything. But I think that because love is the highest frequency in the universe, and if we hold the energy of love, because it's different to love than to hold the energy of love in your heart. So then when you meditate, I mean, just close your eyes and be silent and you go into your heart, then it expands, right? But then from there, you can move to many different things. I mean, you can use, your third eye, you can use the sound. I mean, I move my hands a lot when I work, because that's the way I channel energy. So I think each of us has a different way of doing things, but we have to make it very simple. That's what these Andromeda beings, light beings, as I call them, they always say, make it simple. Don't complicate it. Just make it very simple. Connect to yourself. Go within. Just listen. Listen in silence, but listen with your heart.
So beautiful. And yes, keep it simple, simple, simple. Okay, let's go back to the first time that you connected with the feminine Andromedan being. How old were you? Where were you? And what did she look like?
Well, it was the year 2000. We were in Peru. We were doing contact in many different locations in Peru. And we used to have weekly meditations for contact. And all of us that were on that group, we were all channelers. And that's how we did a lot of stuff for the planet, for us, and the environment and whatever, until one day, this being I was channeling, and I was surprised because I never knew where Andromeda was or anything, and she said, well, I'm here to teach you. And at the same time, I knew that she was, her consciousness was half of me too. So that was a way to reconnect myself, because I traveled all over the world for many, many years trying to pick up pieces of myself to be a whole. So at that time, it seems like I was ready for the next step. So when she showed up, she talked about, how to meditate, how to follow 33 steps on our daily lives, that it was like an Andromeda rule to get an Andromeda consciousness, that I call it the Galactic consciousness. It took us, like 7 years, 10 years to go through all that until we could do, physical contact with them and be able to go to Andromeda with them. And we still go back to the same place every year on that day. And I learned from them so many things, but especially humbleness, how to be very humble, how to have zero ego, how to hear the sound of silence and hear in the heart, and just go, where we have to go and complete a mission. And she is a light being from this universe within Andromeda. They have physical bodies in their world. In ours, they can shift and manifest whatever way they want, because they're just pure light. But they can have physical bodies also. So I call her Ariana. She was the first one. And I learned everything that I do till now with her guidance and assistance.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Marcela. I'm so grateful to you for sharing and gifting us so much amazing information thus far. You mentioned briefly that you've been traveling around the world, reconnecting to parts of yourself. Would this also be a way to describe a soul retrieval from past lives? Thank
Yes,
you.
exactly. That's what it is. Past lives and things that probably I've done in those past lives that they needed to be either healed or reactivated. And also to put myself together, try to remember all those past lives and all the gifts maybe that I had at that time, and to complete in this life and in this mission. So I traveled all over, South America and Central America. I went to Asia. For me, the best gift was to go to Tibet and reconnect with that energy in the Himalayas. And then in Africa, there are many places like in Namibia to reconnect with the desert and the dunes. And probably the one that has the strongest connection for me, it's Egypt. That's where I still go very often, because that's where I recharge my energy and I can see all these light codes that are left there, because sometimes they're written, in the air, in the sky, anywhere, and I can see it and use that energy for me and for everything else that I do for the planet and humanity for contact.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing about the light codes that are in the air, not just written on, pyramids or obelisks or temples or anything like that, that we can pull into us when we've connected and we feel that resonance of safety and purity and love. So can you tell us whereabouts in Egypt, for you in particular, that you feel resonance and connection to light codes?
Well, the thing with the ancient Egyptians are that either they were galactic beings or they were connected to galactic beings. So there's a lot of information on light codes that were left in the temples, in the hieroglyphics, different places at the Giza Plateau. But for me, especially in Luxor, Egypt, in the temples. And for me, it's just go there and get the energy, in my hands, expand it to the people, to the planet, create all these pillars of light that can hold the transition of the planet and humanity. And everything is there. So for me, everything was written there from the beginning of times to the end of times. And it was done in very high frequencies and in a totally different vibration also.
That's so beautiful. I've been there, the temples of Karnak and Luxor, and had, really beautiful experiences. You also mentioned Tibet. We don't hear too much about Tibet. You also mentioned the Himalayas, or the Himalayas, as some people refer it as. Can you share where in the area that you connected to the Himalayan, dimensions that are there and the magic that's there, just to give us a little bit of an insight?
Well, as you know, I grew up in Cusco, Peru, and I live in the Rockies in Colorado in the US. And I'm connected to the energy of the mountain. So for me, it was just a desire first to go to the Himalayas, which are very magical. And it was very different from the Andes because all the energy and all the sacred energy that it was hidden there, it's still hidden. You have to go through layers to reconnect to that. In Peru, it's there. You feel it, it's flowing. In the Himalayas, you just have to go through many layers to reconnect. And I took a tour going from Nepal through the Himalayas to get to Lhasa. So I stayed in many different monasteries along the way that were very high up. Some of those were like 15,000 feet high or higher. So the energy of the place, plus of course the Buddhist knowledge of everything, it was intense for me also to reconnect myself with lifetimes that I had there. So it was very interesting and it was intense. And once I reconnected with the energy of the Himalayas, I knew that all the mountains and all these ranges of mountains were all connected too. And for me, Tibet and Peru and Bolivia, they're connected. And it was a great connection and reconnection of energy between those mountains.
That's so fantastic. Marcela, thank you so much for giving us such a gift and insight into inner earth, the mountain ranges and how everything connects, and beautiful ways to connect ourselves to, our brothers and sisters and our galactic selves. You mentioned that when you connected with Adriana, that you felt a half consciousness with her, this being that presented herself as more feminine and masculine. Do you consider yourself to be actually her in the future, or as an Andromedan? How could you kind of express that to us?
Oh, I would say that that's me in Andromeda. And that's my consciousness, my galactic consciousness on Earth. And maybe for many people like me that know exactly their origin or they're trying to find their mission, it's not basically trying to remember the galactic roots. I would say that it's more important to learn how to be human and enjoy the experience of being human in this life.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So beautiful. All right, let's get into your presentation, your photos. I'm just going to hand over because it's so exciting. No pressure.
Well, I have a very small group of people, probably from Alex Collier, that there aren't too many people that talk about Andromeda. And Andromeda, it's the closest galaxy to the Earth, but although it's like 2 billion and a half light years from the Earth, And it's full of planets and constellations and different beings. In my case, I connected with beings that come from a universe within the central sun of Andromeda that I call the Blue Sun. So I learned from them that contact can be done in so many different ways. And I learned how to feel their energy. I learned how to see them. Sometimes they can be miniature, they can reshape, resize. And we have to learn how to really see through. And I take photos for me to reconfirm what I was doing at the moment, what I was feeling at the moment, what I was channeling through photos with simple, very simple cameras, just for me to reconfirm what I'm doing, and what I'm doing, it's right at the moment or whatever I am. So my photos are just part of that, of my daily life on contact that is permanent. It's continuous. It happens all the time, anywhere. It can be outside, inside, or whatever I am, inside a plane. They're always there. So for me, it's like they're my guides. They're always with me. They protect me all the time. So for me, meeting people like Alex Collier from Andromeda, it's a gift because there aren't too many. I have a very small group. We all work together. And although we don't live in the same countries, we all work together when we have to go on a mission. So let me see if I can do this. And I can just show you maybe something. Let's see. Well, I don't know how to find it. I'm very sorry.
It's all right. So I'm going to put the recording on, my recording on pause for a moment. Okay, so Marcela, as an Andromedan contactee, is a very, very private person. She doesn't go public very often at all. We were looking to see whether we could share screens, or she could share some of her photos, but that's not working right now for us. So we will point you to her Facebook page, which is one of the only ways that you can actually view her. One of the things I personally just love and adore about the Andromedan souls is their sweetness and their humbleness and their love for this planet and their love for humanity. And, you know, we, the humans, often we're so grabby. We want instant gratification. We don't want to have to wait for something. We want to just like click a button and there it all is. And, you know, that's one of the beautiful, graceful aspects of you, Marcela, that you're giving us your time. You're sharing such information, some that I don't think everyone has heard before. You know, it's a gift. You're a gift to us, and we thank you so much for it. You mentioned the central sun, and you mentioned the blue sun in, on, around Andromeda. Can you give us a bit more of the actual physical aspects of Andromeda? Are we looking at the constellation? Are we looking at Andromedan motherships? Are we looking at the sun that you go through into another, I'll call it arena, and let you take over from there?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Andromeda is a spiral galaxy, and it's full of planets and constellations that we actually don't know much about them. I think there's only one planet that the scientists have discovered. But Andromeda has many, many different constellations and planets and beings. There's a central sun in the spiral galaxy of Andromeda, and I call it the Blue Sun of Andromeda. And I use them, and they use them as a portal, as most of the suns are. So you go through that, and you go within another universe. It's a mini universe inside Andromeda. And they have also an amazing blue sun, but at the same time, it's translucent. The light, the energy that it creates and expands, it's blue. And these beings, they live there inside spheres. And sometimes it feels like it's ice, and it's not. It's the energy that is translucent. So they feed themselves also, and they can use spheres for traveling. And they use the central sun of Andromeda as a way to cross when they have to come to the Earth. These beings are very, very tall. Some of them are the white ones with no hair, with blue eyes. Some others, I mean, I call them the golden beings because they just golden energy. They're blue and they're translucent. Sometimes they manifest in front of me, you know, and I can see them in front of me with the light, and we talk and we do whatever. Sometimes they put the images in my eyes. So I learn how to feel the energy in my eyes and take a photo also of my eyes. And it's not because I like selfies, but it's needed. So I can see what is the reflection in my eyes. And sometimes when I do something that it was needed, it was important, it was very hard, like very isolated places to go to and very hard to get there. Usually I get a lot of hearts, either in my pictures or in my eyes. So that's the way that they manifest the unconditional love they feel for humanity and the beings from Andromeda on Earth that are doing their mission. In this place, they have all these ascended masters also, but I call them the masters of creation because they came to Earth at the beginning of times and they left a lot of information and light codes in different places on the planet for the new times, for the times that are coming, for the end of times. So I was just 2 weeks ago in Patagonia, in Argentina, in the glaciers, and it was just so hard to get there because it's so far away. But the energy is so pristine, and for me to feel the presence of those beings, knowing that that energy was kept sacred all these millions of years, and then we can use that for the end of times. It was gratifying, and it was a gift to be able to be there as a messenger and expand that translucent light from the glaciers to all America and then expand it to the planet. So these beings are here and they come often and help us because they were here at the beginning of times and they believe that our planet needs another chance to do their best. And we're also in the shifting process as a planet, you know, going into another location in the universe and another dimension and vibration. So they're here to help us. They're very loving beings. And when I travel or when I talk, I always say that I'm a messenger of light and that I'm here to raise the frequency of the planet, to expand consciousness and touch hearts, because I think that's what defines the Andromeda mission on Earth. That's what they come here, and that's why they're here for.
So beautiful. Thank you. Just so lovely to imagine these beings of love that are holding pristine energy and emitting that through people like you, that you're obviously part of this beautiful Andromedan consciousness, and that they're just here in support of our planet as she physically shifts in her position in this solar system. And did they ever take time to explain to you why Earth is literally physically moving on her axis in this solar system, this galaxy?
Well, I think we, as beings, also as the planet, as an entity alive, we complete times and phases. And sometimes we complete an era, and maybe for us on a 3D world, we need to transition into a higher dimension and a higher vibration. And then because of consciousness, there are so many people that are awake, many people awakening now, helping the planet. And because also the cosmos is in contact movement and in constant transformation also. So we go with it, you know.
Mm-hmm. As we know, many of us know, we've come to understand, and those are coming to understand, that there are many, many beings in the universes and the galaxies. And, you know, if we just rely on the space agency that we're all supposed to believe, or we just believe all the scientists, etc., we're never going to learn anything. Sharing our actual experiences is how we learn. It's how we evolve. It's how we run roughshod over the little pithy people that have tried to keep information back. Speaking of pithy people and little low vibrational entities, we've had reptilians, Draco, stinky ass greys, other beings that decided, ooh, planet Earth is really rather quite beautiful and really rather quite special and spectacular. Why don't we launch ourselves there and take over? Now, many of us have come to understand that they all failed, because they're failures, like the leaders that run the planet. Now the whole system is breaking down. Do you have any specific explanation for us as to why planet Earth is such a desirable planet to live on in particular?
I think planet Earth was created to be perfect, because at the beginning of times, there were beings from many, many different places that they came here to plant different seeds to have a better humanity. And it seems like it didn't work, because a lot of beings also, ET beings, came here for power. And in everything, there was a war, and still goes on, you know, and we still live in a duality, and we still go between good and bad, and good and evil, and positive, negative. And I think we're getting to a point where either we have to choose which side you're on, and that is helping the planet also to move. But it was created to be perfect. It didn't work out as the plan was. But I think because there's a divine plan for the planet and humanity, we're all working through that direction to make it work. Because even if we don't do nothing, the planet is going to move in the location in the galaxy, whether we like it or not. And then the way we're going to see our planet is going to change too. And the dimension that it's going to be, it's not necessarily going to be a 3D. So it would be very interesting to see how humanity would behave, knowing that 3D as we know it, it's dissolving. And then maybe we're going to end up in another dimension that is totally unknown. And hopefully there will be more reasons to believe that there can be peace, that there can be harmony, that we can live in a better world. And I think that's what they're doing to try to help us, all these ET and light beings.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yes, we decide, we live through love, we love each other, and it is possible. And the elements and the negative elements of desiring power, desiring to control other beings, is simply not allowed. And we as a humanity, and I'll speak for myself, I personally rebuke that controlling, power for these non-entities, these lower vibrational dog turds, lower than under the sewers. Now, I did want to ask you a question, and I do feel so sorry for people, and I truly do, and I mean that without being patronizing. There are so many people that have listened to so many things, and they're like, oh my God, there's going to be a solar flash, there's going to be a solar event, it's going to create tsunamis. And I'm so annoyed that that was even put out there in the way that it was put out, because it's so irresponsible to me personally, Dani, that people are now scared every day that there's going to be some kind of a massive event. They're so frightened, they can't get to their families. Like, that's just forcing fear and domination on people to keep them locked and out of the vibration of love. I don't believe there's going to be a massive, chronic, catastrophic solar event. And I could be wrong. I don't think I am. But please, what say you about that?
Well, the thing is that there's a lot of fear, and there are lots of people in fear. So that would be the first thing that we have to work on, fear. And the personal fear, because sometimes, I mean, it's collective, but at the same time, it's individual. So if we can put a lot of love, as you say, and all the frequencies of love to take the fear away, like people like you that do all kinds of coaching and all that, it will help. And then at the same time, whatever happens, it's going to happen. It's not going to change. So whatever we do, even if we are in fear, it's not going to change nothing. So if we can trust that we follow a divine plan, that we're protected, that we're here to make it better, that we're here all together because we're all one. And depending what we do, we can move forward as a planet, as a humanity, then things will change. But I think basically everything would be changing if it's with the frequency of love, and learning to teach other, learning to respect, a lot of respect.
Definitely. And, once people there's a level, I feel, within humanity where there's a level of surrender that's needed, not giving in and dying and surrendering to power, but surrendering to this need to control and have more material, more power, more this, more that, more money, more Bitcoin, more just this, as you said, connecting to the heart, connecting to the soul, breathing into the body, exploring by ourselves, not being under the fear of religion. Oh, if you don't do it this way, you're going to go to hell. Oh, no, there has to be we came here as individuals to experience this planet and the harmonies and our galactic brothers and sisters. So we owe it to ourselves to be able to travel inside and connect to that love part of us without a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, a mother, a rabbi, a vicar, a pope. These are my personal thoughts. And what do you think about that?
Well, I think you're right, because yes, we're very individual and at the same time, we're part of a group. But being individual, if we work on our own decisions, on feelings, and our beings, because I mean, the basic of everything, including contact, is to be in connection with yourself and to know yourself. So if we start with that, loving yourself, respecting yourself, then we can do everything else with others around us.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Also, Marcela, this time that we're in, I realize, well, not just in this moment, but I've realized, and have compassion for those people. There have been people that put themselves out there in the world as spiritual leaders, and they themselves have been misled. And they have been setting out teachings and creating religions to enslave, but they weren't really sure, but they kind of had a niggling feeling, but they weren't really sure, but they kind of thought maybe. And now they're coming to understand that some of their teachings are absolute bollocks, bullshit, and lies. And some of them, the ego is like, oh God, I can't back down now. I can't. And they will be moved along to the side. So I would say to those people, love on you, be okay, just step to the side. And because the more you try and push your agenda, the harder it's going to be for you, because love wins. It always has, it always did, and it always will. Marcela, yes. You beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person, being, so grateful for you. I can literally feel the love resonance from you. When you speak, you just emanate such beautiful Andromedan frequency and care. You've gifted us with information that I know others, they may have seen other broadcasts with other people and heard bits, but you brought something today. You've connected dots. I know people are going to feel that. They're going to recognize that. And we're so grateful to you. Is there anything else that you feel that you should share with us at this point that you may not have shared?
Well, thanks so much for your words. You're very kind.
That's true.
The only thing I would say, because I work on the contact field, is that if we can teach people that there's much more to contact, that contact is a relationship you develop, that if you really want to make contact, start with yourself and then go out, make your connection, make your E.T. connection, but find out why and learn and follow. Because if you do it just for the phenomena, it won't work. We're not here for the phenomena anymore. I think that's becoming obsolete. So if we all learn to respect everybody's experiences, if we allow people to talk and teach, the ones that know, it will be much better. Because still, if still wherever you go and you say contactee or specific words, you're still very weird to them, because it's not normal, it's not common. But if we can teach people that there's much more to contact than just watching the sky, we can start changing the world.
So beautiful. Marcela, thank you so much. You're such a gift. I'm so grateful to have finally connected with you. It's been almost a year, but I believe in the cycles of time that we're in, and I believe that information comes out when it's supposed to. And you've been gifting information for a long time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for gifting us.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for
Right.
this interview and for inviting me to be here.
Of course, of course. And to you lovely people out there, you audience, you may want to watch this broadcast 1 or 2 times. Marcela has gifted frequency. She emanates light, she emanates love. And I invite you to take your time and to just maybe go back and make notes and just see what you feel. This is, without question, everyone I've ever interviewed is beautiful, and I'm so grateful for. And, you know, I'm not saying anyone's better than anybody else, but for me personally, sitting here with you, I want to cry. I just feel so much love. This has been one of the most important broadcasts that I know I've ever done. And so I thank you also. Again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And to you guys out there, keep loving on yourselves. We're going through a beautiful time. And we're all worthy of love, and we're all worthy of evolving, and we're all worthy of connecting within and expanding love to us first through our hearts, and then to others. And to all of you, I send you my love, and I will see you soon.